What's up guys, welcome back. So in the last video I showed you guys my brand new, well not brand new, but new to me 318 Ti. Since then, finally gave her a wash. This paint is actually a lot cleaner than I expected underneath. There's still like minor scratches around the car, but like overall it's not too bad. Now I know some of you are probably wondering why I even ended up getting this Ti and why I'm not going to be drifting the 318 IS for a little bit. As you guys know, the rear end on this thing is pretty messed up. I priced everything out for like materials and like getting new quarter panels. I planned on getting the Big Duck Club replacement quarter panels, and those ended up being like around $750, and then materials on top of that, the total cost ended up coming out to around like probably $1,200. So along with price being a factor, I also just don't feel like I have the skills, nor do I have the equipment to be able to do a tube rear end to the standard that I would like. So yeah, I don't have any plans of getting rid of this car right now. I really want to try and keep it and actually do a tube rear end at some point, because in my opinion, this is still a totally usable chassis, and I feel like it would just be a huge waste to send this thing to the junker, you know? Thankfully though, I can swap over pretty much everything that I've done to the IS over to the Ti. Now, one thing that is a little odd about these Ti's is their suspension setup. So the front end is still an E36 suspension, like everything's the same, but the rear end is where it gets a little funky. This has an E30 rear suspension, and from what I understand, I think I should still be able to use the coilovers from the IS on the rear, because from everything I've read, it just seems like the shocks on the E30 rear suspension are a bit shorter, but I think I have enough adjustability on the coilovers that I already have to where I can get them short enough and still mount them right up. So yeah, everything from the IS can get transferred straight over to this car, which is going to save me a lot of money and keep this thing relatively budget friendly. And speaking of budget friendly, let's get into how much I actually got this car for. I managed to pick this thing up for a pretty insane deal. I went down to Seaside and I was able to pick this thing up for $840. I knew going into it that the car was going to be a little rough around the edges, and honestly, this car, it met my expectations, and if not, exceeded my expectations a little bit. We'll start with the biggest issue of the car as it sits right now. When I got the car, it had a check engine light, and when I first went to scan the codes, there were a total of 5 codes. After tweaking around with like a couple little things, I managed to get it down to only 3 codes. So there's a code for the DISA circuit, there's a code for camshaft position sensor, and then there's also an O2 sensor code. When I got it, there was like an intermittent misfire and then some other code, but I was able to fix that up by patching some holes in the intake that weren't too bad. Kind of a ghetto fix here. I'll show you real quick. So originally this car has a bit of a different intake. OEM, this is a bit of a shorter boot, and then the traction control module sits like right here, and then it goes into this and then into the MAF. But what I did to fix it up, since this first boot up here had a big ass tear in it, I took the intake boot off of the green IS and I just slapped it on here. It didn't fit perfectly, so it's a little ghetto rigged, like not everything is sealed, and like this little vacuum hose back here that's supposed to go to the injectors doesn't reach, so I literally just plugged up this hole and then we stuffed this hole with some duct tape. It's definitely not like a totally leak-proof seal, but it's definitely better. Now, some of the more minor issues: missing this corner light. Luckily the blinker still works. As you can see, this car was in Seaside, so there definitely is a little bit of rust. These are some of the more minor spots. The trunk hatch has a bit more, oh god damn, this thing's heavy. So up along here, it's pretty rusty, pretty bad, but thankfully this isn't like a super structural portion of the car, so I'm not too worried about it. There's also some gnarly rust spots right under here. Thankfully, this is also not like a super important structural bit. I'm definitely going to address that at some point, but it's not at the top of my list, honestly. So when I got the car, this inside handle didn't work, but literally it was only because it wasn't mounted, so that's working now. And then also when I got it, the driver's side window wasn't working like whatsoever. But thankfully, this was just unplugged and the window was just off the rails. So I might put in a clip right here of me fixing it, I don't know. High side's in? Oh. Oh, jeez.
I think you fixed a window.
Yo! Yo! We fixed the window! Oh. So definitely like a little rough.
But it's definitely better.
Bro, fix the door handle and the window. We don't make no how-to videos. You just gotta look at it and
Just do it.
it makes sense. There's stuff with like adjusting arms and shit down here, but we don't worry about that in here. We do the Beamers, bro. That's hype.
Fuck yeah, that is hype.
But yeah, we got that fixed. Pretty simple fix. It wasn't too bad. Interior wise, car definitely is a little bit rough. The seats are pretty torn up, but honestly, that's not a huge issue for me. Rear seats, actually in surprisingly good condition. The door cards, like every other BMW, got torn out at one point, so they're all held in by self-tappers. Honestly, not that bad because it makes taking the door panel off pretty easy. But yeah, I mean, other than that, car doesn't have a radio, which honestly isn't a huge issue to me. Some of the pros though, car only has 170,000 miles, which is still like quite a bit, but for a BMW these days, that's not bad whatsoever. Clutch still feels amazing. It pulls to redline, except when I did get the car, like on the drive home, I was testing out, kind of giving it some gas, and I noticed that in first gear, the thing bucked like no other under like 50% throttle. Like it was pretty gnarly, but thankfully, after fixing up all the leaks on the intake, it cleared that up right away, and I haven't really had that issue since. I mean, the car has like every leak that you'd expect from a BMW, like power steering's leaking a little bit. I'm sure there's like a valve cover leak somewhere, but it's not too bad. I've yet to do any sort of maintenance on this car, so soon I'll probably do an oil change, and then when we weld up the diff, of course, we're gonna switch out the fluids in that. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything on this car. Oh, one more thing. I showed this in the reveal video, but the thing has slotted and drilled rotors in the rear, which I thought was actually kind of funny. Like, of all the things for this car to have, it has drilled and slotted rotors. I'm kind of wanting this car to be like a super budget-friendly, just like cheap drift build that you can just drive events like lap after lap and just get as much seat time as you can, you know? And for like $840, like this is literally just as budget as I feel like you can get, especially with an E36, like with how prices are looking these days. Like these cars are only going up in value, so actually I'm super fortunate to be able to have gotten this car for $840. Kellen and I ran over to the junkyard earlier today to pick up some different parts, so I'm probably gonna put some clips in right here, and then after that we'll be over at the garage putting all that stuff in, hopefully trying to clear up some more of these codes. So I'll go over to that, and then I'll see you guys back at the garage. All right, so we're taking a trip to the junkyard today because, you know, what type of budget build wouldn't complete without some junkyard parts? I want to pick up some parts for the TI. Specifically, I want to try and get a corner light for that missing side. And then, what else? I want to pick up the sensors that are throwing codes. I don't know if those are that's going to fix the issues or not, but I figure if I can get some parts for cheap at the junkyard, I might as well, and maybe it'll fix the issue. Along with that, I want to get a new intake boot, and I want to get the little hose that comes from the intake to the fuel injectors, and then potentially a diff. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out when we get there. Hey, row 23. Let's see. Where? Ooh, I see it. Oh, someone's already been in it. Someone's been in it. Oh no, one of the quarter lights is already gone. Oh, the other one's still there. Come on. Oh no, both corner lights are already gone. Damn. Oh, okay, so intake boot. Is the intake boot sending anyone around here, or did someone already take it? Hey, the intake was hiding. Oh, so this actually has a different intake, but this will be nice. Yeah, because I don't have the traction control in mine anyways. Oh, this is perfect. Boom. Good stuff. All right, so now I want to grab this cam sensor, and I want to get that vacuum hose that goes to the intake boot. So I'm gonna have to get this upper portion of the intake manifold off. Thankfully, I have a little bit of experience with this, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Okay. There we go. Boom. Bet. This is what we're getting to. Boom. One more piece off the list. Bet. Got the camshaft sensor out. I'm actually kind of hopeful about this because all the plugs I'm noticing have dielectric grease in them. So that means that whoever was working on this car before actually had like some sort of idea of what they were doing. So I'm hoping that this cam sensor is in good condition. I honestly don't know if the one that I have is in good condition, but I have a code for it. So I figure out if I can pick this up for like 10 bucks at the junkyard, I might as well give it a try, you know? Since there's no corner lights, the one thing that was left was the diff. I'm still kind of up in the air about whether or not I want the diff. You already got the rear drive shaft bolts out?
Yep.
Shit, so it's literally like the 4 bolts on top, and then there's the one to the chassis of the car, and then the axle bolts. Fuck it. Let's do it. We're getting the diff. So we just got out. I got the diff, I got the intake boot. I ended up picking up this DISA valve because I also had the DISA code for the check engine light. So I don't know if it's part of the circuit or if it was the DISA that's in the car that was a problem, but I'm gonna pop that in. It was literally like $5 to pick this up, so I thought, why not? And then we also have the camshaft sensor. So probably gonna get back. I think I might try to install these tonight, we'll see. But we gotta get back home now because we got a bit of a drive and hopefully we don't hit traffic. All right, so we've made it over to the garage. I actually remembered I had a couple things that I forgot to mention about the car. It seems like this car doesn't have a thermostat in it because on the way home back from Seaside when I was driving back, the car was actually overcooling itself, which I guess could be a plus for an E36. Like, I'd rather have overcooling rather than overheating because these cars are just kind of notorious for having cooling problems. But that also could mean that there were cooling problems with the car to begin with. Overall, though, I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'm probably just going to run this engine into the ground just like I was doing with the IES. And then this car will probably end up receiving the M52, which will turn this thing into a 328 Ti, which is honestly really exciting to think about. But I'm going to maintain that in the back of my head, just going to focus on it as it is now. I have a hard time getting rid of things that aren't broken. So, like, I really just want to run this engine until it won't go, which is just probably going to make the swap take even longer, but it is what it is. The other thing that I forgot to mention is that this thing has a fatty old exhaust leak. Like right where the two pipes underneath the car connect, that flange, it's just rusty to shit and isn't sealing very well. So I'm probably going to pop some new bolts in there and hopefully that'll fix things up. But without further ado, let's get to installing these new parts. So like I mentioned before, I picked up the DISA valve, I got the new intake boot, and I picked up the new cam sensor. I honestly don't expect the new cam sensor and the new DISA valve to fix the code, but I mean, they're cheap enough parts. I picked up both these, I think together it was maybe like 10 bucks, which is funny because this brand new is probably like 150, and then I don't even know how much sensors go for. But yeah, we're gonna pop these in. Hopefully, maybe it'll clear the codes, but I don't know. Same thing as before, we need to start by taking off this top intake manifold. So I'll get that off and then I'll get back with you guys. All right, so now that we have the upper portion of the intake manifold off, we can kind of see what we're working with. So we have the cam sensor right down there. And then right on top, we have the hose that we're gonna be replacing that goes into the vacuum hoses that connect off into the fuel injectors. Thankfully, it seems like these hoses that go to the fuel injectors aren't very dry rotted. They're still in pretty good condition, so I'm not gonna worry about those right now. But you can really see the difference between the two parts. So the old one obviously is still on there, and this new one is a tad bit longer, which will accommodate the hole going into the intake being a bit further away. And this one is still in relatively good condition, whereas this old one is all split and nasty and whatever. So pop this off real quick. And then we'll move on here to the cam sensor. It's just a little Allen bolt holding it in, so you just have to disconnect the Allen bolt. And then come over here, and then it's this first connector right here on the top for this car to disconnect the old cam sensor, and then we'll just have to reroute the new cam sensor and plug it back in. All right, so new cam sensor's in. We got the old DISA valve out, and we have the new one sitting right here. Gave it a quick little clean. I know you're probably supposed to put new O-rings on this, but honestly, this O-ring's not in terrible condition, so I'm just gonna throw it back in like this. It's pretty simple. It's just held in by these 3 bolts right here. Just bolt right in. Fairly simple to get in. Bet the new DISA's in. Now we're gonna put in this hose, and then we're gonna put the top portion of the intake manifold on and kind of just button everything up. Boom, just like that, and got the new intake on, got the hose connected, it's fitting great. Honestly, this looks a hell of a lot better than having those 2 pieces of intake piping just like stuck together real jankly. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna clear the codes that are on here right now just so we can see if they return. But so yeah, as you can see right now, we still have 3 codes. We'll read them real quick just to show you. BMW, yeah, so we got the P1511, which is the DISA, the P0340, which is the camshaft position sensor, and then the P0136, which is the O2 sensor. I doubt that's going to change at all, but hopefully we'll be able to get those other two codes off. Back real quick, erase the codes. Boom.
And now,
I will turn this video on. Sounded good straight off the back. No check engine light as of now, but we'll take it for a drive real quick and see if she pops back up. All right, so we took it on a drive. Everything seems in check. There's no check engine lights. I imagine that maybe the car didn't get to do like all the checks that it wanted, but like for now, I'm just gonna be under the assumption that there are no check engine lights. I mean, I let the car get up to temp, ran it for probably like 5-ish miles, something like that, and no check engine lights came back up. And the car's actually feeling a lot better. The low end seems to have a bit more power, which leads me to believe that the diesel valve is actually doing what it's supposed to do. Either that or the fact that the vacuum hoses for the fuel injectors are hooked up is allowing like the fuel to atomize a bit better, so it's running better. I don't know, it's honestly up in the air at this point, but as of right now, no check engine lights. We seem to have gotten rid of all of them, and I'm gonna call that a win. But I think that's gonna do it for this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.